Series. I'm Margaret Barron. I'm Senior Associate Dean for Physician Scientist Research Training. And see where do I need to do something to get that message out of the way?
You just need to click it on the screen.
Okay. Okay. So the goal of this series is really essentially to start to build a community of physician scientists at Mount Sinai, including students, trainees, and faculty, to support a feeling of esprit de corps, to provide a venue for sharing information, ideas, and perhaps for promoting collaborations, and also for providing additional sources of guidance and mentoring for those of you who are who want to incorporate research into your career path. So this is the first session, which is really going to be an overview and an introduction. We have three additional sessions that are scheduled so far, and we hope that this will be a monthly event. So the upcoming sessions include a February 8th session on finding a mentor and understanding the basics of the mentor and mentee experience and aligning expectations between mentors and mentees. On March 15th, we'll have Dr. Robert Wright speaking about grants, particularly the NIH, but other agencies as well. And then in April, we'll have Dr. Linda Damer from UCLA in a virtual session talking about time management, strategies for developing your career and overcoming obstacles such as procrastination and feelings that everything needs to be absolutely perfect, so perfectionism. So a major takeaway from this meeting, I hope, will be that there are many ways to construct a successful career as a physician scientist, whether or not you have a degree in addition, a graduate degree in addition to an MD degree. And there are a number of paths. One of the traditional paths is to go through an MD PhD program. And as you know, Mount Sinai has an MD PhD program, and I directed that program for almost 8 years. But there are other ways to pursue a career as a physician scientist. Many people go through medical school and incorporate an additional year. So that would be the middle line of this diagram. So that would be MD plus, in which students in medical school might do 1 or more extra years of scholarly work and then graduate from medical school, followed by more postdoctoral training in research, whether it's bench research or computational work or clinical research. And then finally, other people graduate from medical school and then they pursue additional research training. And it turns out that of all NIH-funded PIs who have an MD degree, almost half of those have graduated from MD PhD programs, and yet the MD PhD graduates are only 3% of medical school graduates. So there's a lot of room for MD trainees who don't have a PhD, and we need a lot of you to decide to pursue research of different types, whether it's basic, translational, or clinical. And we hope that this series will help to stimulate some of you to do that. This slide just makes the same point that MD PhD graduates pursue research in a variety of different directions. They often start with basic science research, but then they'll often incorporate translational and patient-oriented research or go into health services. And that's true of graduates from medical school who don't have a PhD. This week, we're going to be sending out a needs assessment survey that will go out either tomorrow or the day after. And that will include a series of thoughts about potential sessions for upcoming meetings. And we'd like to hear from you about what you think would be useful. And there's a box at the end for you to add your own thoughts about what kinds of sessions might be helpful and interesting. So we're going to have a panel discussion, and I'd like to introduce, I'll tell you a little bit about our panelists today. Dr. Ethan, I think I don't know if he raises his hand, will people see him?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Ethan, maybe you can raise your hand. Dr. Abbott has a master's in clinical research. He went through the program at Mount Sinai, and he's a new assistant professor in emergency medicine and population health. And he was a former trainee on the emergency medicine T32 trainee grant. Dr. Jake Blickman, you can raise your hand. He's in his second year of a dermatology residency. He's a PhD candidate in immunology, and he's working in Dr. Emma Gutman's lab. Dr. Megan Januska, did I pronounce that right? Yeah. Dr. Januska is a new assistant professor in pediatrics, and she's a KL2 Scholar Award winner. Dr. Lauren Lippo is in her sixth year of our NIH, NIMH supported psychiatry residency plus PhD. She's finishing up her dissertation in the next year or so. Dr. Tariq Muhyiddin, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yep.
Okay, he's in his second year in the HEMONC fellowship, residency fellowship, and he's a graduate of our ABIM research residency in internal medicine. And finally, Dr. Alex Schipper, who's a fourth year resident in neurosurgery, and he recently received a grant from the Pediatric Cancer Foundation. So I think we can just stop the slides now.
Now you can see everyone.
Okay. And then is it set up so that as people talk, they'll,
I'll be able to hear them.
okay. Okay, so maybe we could start by having each one of you briefly tell us, just tell us a little bit about your career path, at what point did you get interested in research, whether it was high school, undergraduate, or later, and then we'll take it from there. So maybe we can start with you. Ethan.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. Yes, I think I took a little bit more of a non-traditional.
I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Eric, I think before we go on to the panelists, I'd like to introduce Dr. Michael Lightman, who's the Dean of Graduate Medical Education, and Dr. Eric Nestler, who's the Dean for Academic Affairs and the, what is your?
That's enough.
Yeah. Okay, so Ethan, maybe you could give Dr. Lightman I just wanted each one of you to say a little bit about physician scientist training at Mount Sinai.
Oh, Dr. Lightman, you have to move a little.
I got it.
Can they hear me on Zoom if I speak into this?
Yeah,
I mean, they're
You have your
looking
back.
at your back. This room is really not good for
Alright.
hybrid.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Well, for those of you that I see in 3 dimensions, good evening. And for those of you that are up on the screen, thank you all. Thank you all for joining. Really, it's a pleasure to see all of you. It's been a while since I've seen some of you, but I'm thankful that you're here. Thank you, Dr. Barron, for really adding a dimension to Mount Sinai's GED program. I'm really interested to hear what our panelists are going to share with us, and I'm really grateful that all of you have joined us to take a little bit of a segue away from clinical medicine and speak about science, which is something that's really important to all of us. I think it's really important to our school, and we're grateful that you're joining us this evening. And I'll hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Eric Nestler. Dr. Nestler, great.
thanks, Mike. Do I need the microphone in order for them to hear me on Zoom?
Try without the microphone.
Can people hear me okay on? Oh, we'll never know.
Tar can hear.
You got a thumbs
All
up.
right, great. So listen, it's really a pleasure to be here today. I've been at Mount Sinai for about 15 years. And my feeling has been since getting here is that we have been on a tear. The trajectory of Mount Sinai is really amazing. We've doubled our NIH funding in the last 7 or 8 years alone. We've risen in the rankings. We're doing really, really well. But frankly, from where I sit, my diagnosis is we don't have nearly as many physician scientists as we should. And I think that's partly because of where we are in our developmental history as a relatively new medical school, only 50 years old or so. Well, the hospital is much older, med school is new. And I think we are now finally at the point where we can invest in developing an army of physician scientists. I think that's essential for the future of American medicine and for Mount Sinai in particular. I'm an MD PhD graduate many, many years ago. I did a research track residency in psychiatry. And having that research track, having research embedded in my residency training was essential for me to launch my academic career. And what we would like to do here at Mount Sinai is to make research opportunities available to residents and fellows to a far greater extent than we've done historically. That's not only for MD PhDs, but as Margaret emphasized, most research by MDs is by MDs that don't have a PhD, right? So we want to embrace everyone, every physician who wants to get active in research, from basic research to clinical research, health services research, computational research, and so on. The way we think is to do that optimally is to have all y'all get involved in research programs that are specific for you. We don't want you to be a traditional 5 or 6 year postdoc in a PI's lab. There's no way that that's feasible given where you are in your clinical training. We want you to go into a lab, benefit from having a PI's mentoring, but then craft a research program that belongs to you, that you can take as your own and develop into as rapidly as possible into a K award or a related type of grant and launch your careers. It's something that some of us know how to do really, really well. Some departments at Mount Sinai have done it well historically. One of the goals that Margaret Barron has, and with Mike's strongest support, is to really now interpolate that across the entire medical center so that every department, clinical training program at Mount Sinai will foster research accordingly. One last point. My career as a physician scientist has been one getting used to transitions. Those of you who are MD PhDs, I think will know what I mean by that. Constantly going back and forth between medicine, research, which can feel like whiplash at times. The hardest of many transitions that I had was to get back into research when I was a resident. And I came from a very strong platform of having a PhD, and still I found it extremely difficult during my PG3 year when I actually had to go back to the lab, start pipetting again, right? I could still remember how traumatic it was for me to start using techniques that were almost like rote, a subconscious memory for me. And it was still a real difficult transition. So we are committed, Mike and Margaret and I, to providing the mentoring and support that you all needed to make that transition. Right? We really want to see this happening. So I can't wait to see what you all hook up with this new program. Congratulations on the new series. And we really are hoping that it takes root. And I'm available to any of you at any time. Please feel free to send me an email if you'd like to hear more. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, now we can start with the panel.
I don't know, keep the mic. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks so much for the invite. So my name is Ethan Abbott. I'm one of the faculty in the Department of Emergency Medicine. I guess maybe my sort of research trajectory is probably a little bit different maybe than other people here. I'm not sure, but so essentially I came straight out of residency and worked clinically for several years, and then got sort of interested in epidemiological and health services research, and realized that I really couldn't conduct it in any sort of tangible way without further training. So I came to Mount Sinai. I was really interested in the T32 research program in emergency care that is run by Dr. Lynn Richardson and Alex Manini. And that kind of gave me the opportunity to sort of build the foundation I needed. So about 3 years ago, I started that, as well as completed a master's in clinical research here. And my focus has been on really health services, epidemiological research, looking at out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, and focusing mainly on disparities and health equity. And that's just kind of a brief introduction of where I've gotten from, or where I've come to. I think one thing that, if I was going to make any suggestions, I think the early struggles in fellowship for me at least were kind of securing the right mentor and sort of getting on that initial pathway. And the one sort of thing that sort of lifted me up, I think, was acquiring my first, grant funding. It was a small amount of money, but I think it really kind of changed everything for me and made me realize what I was doing was pretty exciting and important. So, but I'll pass it over.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for including me in today's series. It's an honor to be a part of such a wonderful group of panelists as well as people here. So my background is a little bit different. I ended up actually going to med school at Sinai through FlexMed's early admission program. And for those that don't know what that is, that's where you can get out, you kind of excuse yourself for some of the traditional requirements of medicine to pursue other opportunities. So for me, that was computer science and bioinformatics. So during college, I spent a lot of my time pursuing research in bioinformatics and then ended up getting a master's in bioinformatics as well. And then ultimately got involved in research almost fortuitously during medical school. I think I bumped into who now is a faculty member here, Dr. Benjamin Unger, who said how the lab just needed a bioinformatician, and I didn't really know much about it. I didn't realize bioinformatics was useful at that time to anyone outside of college. Turns out it ended up being a little useful. And I kind of just fell into this lab and really enjoyed my time in the dermatology lab. And what I ended up realizing, the more clinical exposure I got as the years went on in medical school and ultimately in residency, is that there is so much, I guess it's really amazing to see just a little bit of the gap between what you see in the lab and then what you see in the clinic. So especially in dermatology, there's just been a huge revolution in therapeutics, and it made me want to be a part of it. So I ended up applying into the graduate school's biomedical sciences PhD a little bit later during my fourth year. And now I've been incredibly lucky to be in a residency in dermatology at Mount Sinai, where they're working with me to pursue this PhD in immunology. And they're kind of designing this physician PhD in residence in the dermatology department, where you can carve out time to do research. You have a large percentage of time during various portions of your training to do research, and then ultimately probably end up taking a couple of years beyond the residency to do research here as well. So a little bit of a roundabout journey, but I am grateful to be here. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you as well for inviting me to be part of the panel. So I would say everything started with me since you asked about how everything started. It was as a kid, actually. I always wanted to be a scientist first. That's what I used to think about all the time. And oncology, cancer was my interest. And then one thing that would be different for me is that I'm actually an international medical graduate. So I was in Lebanon, and I went to undergrad and medical school over there. And the difference between there and here is that research isn't really integrated into medical school like it is here in some medical schools. So back then, even when I was in medical school, I really wanted to be part of research projects, and I was interested in the lab side of things rather than clinical. And I must say that as a first-year medical student, going to the labs and in our medical school, asking for research projects or to actually start in a lab, I wasn't taken too seriously because they all thought that, oh, I'm going to bail out because medical school is going to keep you busy. But I ended up actually doing research from first year medical school till I graduated, was able to have a lot of research projects published. And actually that really helped me find a postdoc research fellowship after medical school. So in my last year of medical school, I wanted to get more research experience somewhere here in the US because I wanted to have even more exposure, learn more techniques. So that's how I ended up actually doing a 3-year research fellowship at Dana-Farber. I worked in a multiple myeloma lab over there. And when I was there, I actually became super interested in multiple myeloma. Before going into the lab, I really wasn't sure which part of the oncology field I wanted to go in. I was just applying to different oncology labs. I got the opportunity in a myeloma lab, went in, did the basic science part, but also joined my PI in clinic as well once a week. So I got to see both sides of things. And that's when I found out that I'm interested in multiple myeloma for sure. And after that, I applied for residency, and I really focused on finding a program that offers the physician scientist track. Because I knew for sure that I wanted to stay in academia, be a physician scientist, and I wanted to just keep growing towards that career path. And I must say that out of all the programs that I interviewed at for residency back then, Sinai was like my top choice, and actually was my number one choice, because one thing that I really liked that differentiated Sinai from other residency programs was that when I interviewed here, I felt that all the faculty that actually interviewed me were really interested in research and invested in actually growing physician scientists, even though they were interviewing me for an internal medicine position. And as a resident, you're expected to basically do clinical duties in the hospital, and that's what they really care about usually. I felt that they really gave a lot of weight to what I did in the research field. And that's not something I saw in a lot of the programs I interviewed at. So I really appreciated that. And that was like a main driver for me choosing Sinai for my residency. And as you know, the physician scientist track for residency is 2 years rather than 3 for medicine. So I did that, and now I'm in fellowship. My residency time was busy, mostly because it was during COVID. So that was a busy time, but I still managed to do some clinical projects, even though my interest is usually going into the lab. It's not possible as a resident to be productive in a lab. So I did some research projects, was involved with my myeloma team here. I worked with them, and that created a very smooth transition into fellowship when I became a fellow. So I'm a second year right now. I just finished all my clinical duties as a fellow because our fellowship is 50-50, 50 clinical, 50 research. So, and I asked that all my clinical duties be stacked first half of fellowship, so that once I'm done, I actually go into the lab and keep going and actually be productive rather than going back and forth between clinical duties and lab. So I chose the lab of Dr. Samir Parikh. Very excited to start working with him. I mean, I've been working with him on clinical projects, but now I'm going to be at the bench side. My interests are mainly the tumor microenvironment, immunology, and immunotherapies. A lot of translational focus because I like the bridge between the clinic and the lab. But I guess, like, in addition to all the projects I'm looking forward to, this is the time where I'm now seriously thinking about applying to grants, and that is also my next step, which I must say I'm getting a lot of support for and a lot of mentorship, and I feel very confident that at some point I'll be able to secure a funding because of all the resources I have around me here.
Maybe we can come back to that, and just want to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name's Megan. For those of you who are intimidated by everyone's extra training and extra degrees, I've done none of that. And I'm still sitting in front of you. So I didn't really think I wanted to do research until pediatric residency. The residency here offers a pediatric resident scholarship, which is a small nominal sum, relatively small, to do research during residency. So I was awarded that and started research there. I stayed for my pediatric pulmonary fellowship and knew that I enjoyed my brief time in the lab and residency and wanted to continue that. I was interested in cystic fibrosis clinically, so I found a mentor that could mentor me in that disease state, who had only done research on adults. So I had a new vantage point and was able to successfully compete for a Cystic Fibrosis Foundation Clinical Fellowship Award. And leverage the workflow that I developed during fellowship to apply for my KL2, which I'm working on now. So I'm a direct med school residency fellowship attending and seemingly successful this year.
Hi, I'm Lauren. It's so great just to hear your other stories. I didn't know there was another resident who's getting a PhD, so I feel like we have a lot to talk about. But yeah, so I always was involved in research starting in high school and college. But my mentors who were MDs in college told me that you didn't need a PhD to do research, so no need to apply to MD PhD. So kept doing research through med school, but realized towards the end of med school that I had worked in kind of all these different labs and didn't know like my through line, didn't feel prepared at the end of residency that I'd be able to go become an independent researcher. Had no idea how residency would allow me the time to do that, even in research tracks. Most people applying for research tracks in psychiatry had PhDs. And so then Mount Sinai has this incredible, unique program that psychiatry residency and PhD you can choose in neuroscience or a couple other fields, epigenetics. And so that sounded fun. And it's 7 years. I'm currently in my 6th year. So part of the idea of the program is that you choose your research area of specialty after you've already established a clinical interest. And so that's really what happened for me. I knew I wanted to do something with novel therapeutics, had worked there before, something translational, maybe clinical. And then just working with patients the first couple of years of residency, I really knew I wanted to work with trauma, and also became extremely interested in psychotherapy. And I feel like Mount Sinai and in New York and Mount Sinai are so unique in that you can still develop clinical interests. So I've taken all these additional psychotherapy training programs, see psychotherapy patients, while still being, seriously, obviously research takes a lot of time and commitment, and you can really do both. So yeah, I've had all this time to, take the neuroscience classes. They've really tailored it to fit into my residency schedule. The residency has been amazing about accommodating that with call and everything. And then started, so when I guess during PGY2, I realized that I really wanted to work in the psychedelic center, which at that time, I guess was just an idea. But met my now mentor, Rachel Yehuda, who had this idea that she wanted to use psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy to treat PTSD. And that, for so many reasons, kind of combined this scientific interest, novel therapeutics, psychotherapy, and felt like a really good fit for me. But I didn't know what I was going to pursue for my neuroscience PhD. The clinical trials are mostly clinical. And so then that's when I got really exposed to the playground that is Mount Sinai psychiatry and neuroscience. And so I just got to go knock on doors of all these PIs in psychiatry, and they were super cool. And there's just amazing things going on. And they also were just really welcoming, which I was surprised about because I didn't necessarily have a lot of experience in their particular field, but I had a lot of, time, which a lot of people don't have, but time and interest. And everyone was extremely, just opened their doors and offered resources and training. And so at first I landed in a neuroimaging lab, and I didn't do lab rotations because I didn't think I had time, which was silly. I landed in a neuroimaging lab, thought it would be a nice skill for a clinician to have. But then COVID happened, and I started realizing the more I learned about neuroimaging, I realized it actually wasn't a good fit. Didn't know what to do. And then during COVID, kind of joined this task force that became the COVID Biobank, led in part by Alex Charney, and discovered this world of bioinformatics, data science, natural language processing, and how a clinician can really be helpful in that translational piece. And so realized that I really wanted to apply natural language processing tools, data science to psychiatry, to psychotherapy. And all of my mentors are extremely gracious in allowing me to switch from neuroimaging to data science. And so now, I'm finishing up my dissertation in Alex Chinese lab while still involved in the clinical trials and psychedelics as a therapist and investigator. And so I feel like I just really get to do all of these different things, psychotherapy, clinical research, data science research that I didn't think like could all be possible, but that are very me. And like on a day-to-day basis, like today I get to do like all of those different things and see psychotherapy patients. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. I'll try to keep it short since I want to give you guys time for questions. I'm the only surgeon on this panel, so I'll try to give kind of the surgeon's perspective or perspective of someone who has a set longer residency. I know Lauren has made hers longer, but I came in knowing it was going to be 7 years. So I actually started medical school debating for a week of doing MD PhD, and then I did the quick math and realized what age I was going to be after neurosurgery residency, doing MD PhD and quickly scrap that. But on a more serious note, I was very confident with the lab experience I had in college and then subsequently in med school. I went to UC San Diego, which is a very strong neuroscience program, as some of you may know. So I was confident that even without being in the MSCP track, I could still get the lab skills that I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, in a specialty like neurosurgery, there are a lot of prolific surgeon scientists who just have MDs. So I really had a clear track to follow. I wasn't really going to be trailblazing by any means and doing things that my mentors told me I couldn't do. So I think that was really the path of least resistance for me, at least. What's nice from a surgeon's perspective is when you're in training, as you guys know, we have longer residencies. So there's more of an innate ability to really weave yourself into a research track. It's not like a short program where you have to extend it by double the length or something like that. So it was really easy for me and pretty seamless because when I was applying to neurosurgery, the ACGME changed the rule that every program had to be 7 years. So every program had a minimum of 12 months of dedicated elective time. So that was really nice. I didn't really have to fight for it, which as an applicant is really a luxury that I appreciated later on. I'd say the two things I really learned that I try to tell to some of our junior residents or med students who I mentor is the two major components that I've really picked up over the years so far, and I'm only halfway through my training, are mentorship and momentum. Mentorship is definitely key. Having people who really pave the way in terms of envisioning a career like yourself, I think is really important. Right now I work in Oren Becker's lab, who in my mind really epitomizes the ability of having a very successful lab without being an MD PhD. He's really trailblazed the way for DIPG, which is the brain tumor that we study in our lab. So having mentorship like that and seeing a track kind of going through your trajectory, even though he's a different specialist than I am, I think is really important. And then momentum is a huge key. Even in a program like neurosurgery, where as a junior resident, you're not often afforded a lot of time to spend on dedicated research. Just being labeled as the research resident or a resident who's willing to take advantage of research opportunities, I think is key. I'll give you an example. So halfway through my intern year was COVID. And so essentially all of the lab opportunities shut down for us. So even though we have 3 months of elective time, my time quickly shifted to Q3 call working with COVID patients, which I was not expecting. When at the beginning of the year, I was anticipating being in a lab. And instead of that, instead of just scrapping the research opportunity, I found some interesting research opportunities around COVID in neurosurgery patients. And that led to a couple of publications I ended up working with attendings so I previously hadn't done research with. And that just kind of snowballed into further opportunities. We studied the most random things. For example, some of the neurological sequelae that pediatric patients in the PICU got who were neurosurgical patients, kind of like the SIRS-like syndromes, for example. And so we started publishing on things like that. Our department under Jay Mako published a lot on COVID-related strokes, aneurysms, et cetera, even published in New England Journal of Medicine on this. So just having a track record of being someone who's willing to take on these research opportunities is key. And then later on, when I was finally able to take advantage of elective time, it really wasn't difficult to try and convince my program director and my chairman that I wanted to do a dedicated year doing benchside research, doing more basic science research. I didn't have the opportunity during junior years, but had I not been productive as a junior resident, taking advantage of more clinical opportunities, I wouldn't have been afforded the same opportunities that I had. For example, I came into the year applying for NREF. Unfortunately, I didn't get it, but I was still given the opportunity because I had proven the track record of being productive from a research standpoint. So even though I failed at getting that specific grant, I was still given the opportunity by my mentors, by my chairman, my program director, just because I had really proven that I was capable of doing the research. And I think that starts early. And I try to tell, at least to like our insurance engineer residents, is even if you're doing something not very impactful, right? You're just publishing a case report or something lower impact, just proving that you have a track record of being able to complete projects, get your name on papers, help people out, work as a team. You're really establishing that name for yourself. And so by the time you come up and you want to do more impactful stuff, people are going to hand you those opportunities, and really it just snowballs. So I think momentum and mentorship are really the two things I've taken away so far.
So thank you. I think from the 6 stories we've just heard, it's very clear that there are many different ways to craft a successful career. All six of you are very successful. And it's also clear that having a mentor or mentors is absolutely critical. So I won't go one by one again, but I wonder if any of you would like to comment on how you go about looking for a mentor and what do you look for in a mentor?
The first thing I look for definitely is pretty obvious, having similar interests. That's number one. And I've definitely had several mentors over the years, and a lot of them I would still consider them mentors. I still reach out to them, I still talk to them and ask for advice. I would say I always tend to find someone who's not too early in their career and not necessarily too senior. Sometimes I'd like to find someone in the middle, because I feel like at that stage they have enough experience to teach, and at the same time they're not too busy to actually create time for you. And the second thing I would look for is like success stories from that specific mentor. Like I would look at the past trainees that have worked with that person and what they've accomplished and where they are right now. And depending on that, that's how I start looking for a specific mentor and trying to decide if that would be the best person for me.
I think it depends on what type of mentorship you're looking for. Like if you're looking for a career mentor, that looks like a certain thing, or if you're looking for a mentor to learn a new skill, that looks like another thing. And that might also look like seeing what postdoc they have, who's going to be readily available to teach you all the time. So yeah, I think I didn't realize at the beginning that those are very different things, like having a clinical mentor, which is really important too, who understands that research needs to fit into your life. And then having someone who can see more big picture, who maybe is more hands-off, but you can still publish papers with or like learn about career opportunities, and then having like a more technical person. I mean, not that you need all of those all the time, but they're very different.
Yeah, I would agree with Lauren. I think I came into research sort of idealistic, thinking there would be like one mentor sort of that would help me along the way. But I think each mentor sort of serves a different role for you. Like Lauren was saying, like you almost have a career development mentor, a content area mentor, a clinical mentor. And I think, I have nightmares when I go to bed that my main mentor is going to like disappear or something, and I'll wake up the next morning and have nobody to help me. But that's not the case, because I think in reality you have several mentors, at different levels and stages in their career, and I think each contributes something important to advancing your research objectives.
And then just to add on, for those of you who might be going into a lab that's run by a PhD, it's really good to either have a clinical mentor or someone who's advocating for your time, that understands what clinical residency is like or what clinical fellowship is like, because the expectations are going to be very different. So unless you set that expectation in the beginning and have someone who can advocate for you through your program, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So finding that like person, whether it's your fellowship director, your residency director, or somebody in the clinical faculty that can keep advocating for you, it's going to be to your benefit.
Any other comments? Okay, well, I could keep asking questions, but I'd like to give some of the members of our audience an opportunity to ask questions before I continue. So do we have questions from anybody in the audience here or online?
Oh, actually, Dr. Barron, I would like to test Dr. Osorio, I see that you are logged on. I want to see if we have our folks who are logged in, if we can hear your questions in the room. So Dr. Osorio, do you mind just unmuting just for a moment, just to see if we can hear your voice?
Yes, sorry, I have the video off. I'm at West on service, but yes, can you hear me?
We can, that is perfect.
Okay,
So
thank you.
folks who are joining us virtually, if you would like to unmute yourselves and pose a question, please do so.
Any questions from anybody in here? Yes,
I was wondering, and I'm so sorry.
maybe we'll pass this down. It's hard to hear you.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the clinical research masters, I think that you were discussing, and how you can like incorporate that into a clinical schedule and how that helps you in your research pursuits.
Yeah, so the master's in clinical research here at least is really focused, I think, more heavily on clinical trials. So just to keep that in mind. But yeah, the way that it was designed for the curriculum, at least for our program, was we did the master's during the T32 fellowship. So at that time, it was only 50% clinical. So in emergency medicine, that would be about 500-600 clinical hours. So I was able to talk with our scheduler about working sort of scheduling shifts around courses and things like that. But it definitely was challenging to to try to balance all that stuff out. But it's very, very possible and doable to complete the master's while working clinically. Maybe full time would be a little bit harder, but yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thanks. I was wondering how you navigated the process of getting a grant, what your experience was like, maybe if you had experience with that.
So I think just to, keep echoing my own beginning, just like mentorship and momentum, I think is everything. So I started off, my original mentor in neurosurgery was a neurosurgeon who actually just moved to Pittsburgh this year, who I started in his lab this year. And starting 2 years ago, he started to include me on industry grants, like smaller private grants through some of the technologies we use in the operating room, just to help with the grant writing process. You'll learn very quickly if you have written grants before. It's a whole nother skill set. It's not like writing a clinical paper or basic science paper. It's a whole new, it really almost needs like its own masters for understanding how to read grants, write grants, etc. And it really made me appreciate, by working on these smaller grants, what it takes to work toward an NIH grant, which is eventually the goal, right, for a lot of us. So I think it's just practice. It's a little harder to get into it because you can't just go on PubMed and start reading grants, right, like you would with papers. But I think just starting early and finding your research mentors and asking them to see their most recent grants, like if they have a R01, can I see your R01? Can I just look at the different drafts you have to see what worked, what didn't, and to see the language and the formatting of grants. And so this year when I started in Orrin Becker's lab, we worked on a B+ Foundation grant for a new project, and fortunately we were awarded it, but it took a lot of hand-holding in the beginning and seeing some of Dr. Becker's other grants to really understand what it takes to be successful at grant writing. So I think, at least in the beginning, like at least at my stage in training, I really need strong mentorship in terms of like understanding what grant writers with the skills that they need and what reviewers are looking for. And then when you become more senior, really adapting those skills. But at least I think probably at our stage, it's really nice to have close mentorship with that, because it's not just a skill that comes innately, like some other skills in medicine.
So I've actually found Sinai to be a great place to apply for grants. At least speaking from a pediatrics perspective, our pediatrics department has an internal grant that they award to 4 or 5 residents or fellows every year for $10,000, which is enough to get you started. The Minutes Child Health Institute has their own grant funding for internal awards for trainees. I think neuroscience does. I'm not sure who else does, but I would look for those opportunities because they tend to be smaller grants, but they're formulated in ways that mimic like what a K would look like, but on a much smaller scale. So I was awarded one of those, which is my first hand in grant writing. And then in fellowship, I I looked for smaller foundational grants are probably the easiest ones to get. And there are grants that are designed specifically for fellows. So depending on what area of specialty you're interested in or disease state, they tend to look to those foundations. So the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation was great. They want to get physician scientists into the pipeline. So they're offering a lot of opportunities for fellows. They're not as competitive as the NIH grants. And then going through that process helped set me up for my next process. I'll also say that if you look for emails, there was a workshop on how to apply for a K that I took when I was a fellow that was online. So there's a lot of opportunities here. You just have to kind of read some of those broadcast emails that I think some of us tend to ignore from time to time. And talk to your mentors about what institutes they're in, whether they have their own training grants, because I think a lot of them do, and what opportunities are here for you locally to start small.
Yeah, I would agree with what Alex said. I think grant writing is like a daunting process, and once you start doing it, it's very painful. So I actually acquired funding through a small foundation, Emergency Medicine Foundation, for a health disparities grant. That was my first successful grant. And then if you get into research, you can also apply for the NIH LRP, which is the loan repayment program grant, which is not super competitive, but it does require you to write a pretty decent grant. And I also got that. And then I just submitted my NHLBI K08 Career Development Award. So I think, you early on, you have to look for, these small little grants, and it requires so much time to write a grant. I think, my K08, I probably spent a year and a half writing the Ames page, and then, more than 400 or 500 hours just writing the grant itself. So I think, it's just a really unusual kind of writing that I had never done before. And I think, trying to start early in practice and get a sense for, what, granting organizations are looking for, because I don't think it's anything like, I have no skill set I've ever, had before, or any kind of writing, style of writing I've done before. So yeah, I would say that's probably one of the most challenging things that I've faced in the last at least year or so.
There's a question? Okay, great.
Ram, you can unmute. Ram, can you hear me? You can unmute and ask your question.
Hello. Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, you're a little low, but we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Ram. I'm a PEDS resident. I'm currently in the PICU, so that's why I couldn't join in person. So my question was, I am an IMG, and as an international medical graduate, we go into med school right out of high school. So we don't get much of a chance to do a bachelor's course where we get opportunities to build our basic science research skills, or opportunities to develop any prior exposure in a STEM field. So for someone who's I realized through med school that I'm interested in research, and then I moved on to residency, and I'm here. And I'm finding it hard to really display the skills that I think are required for someone who wants to pursue a physician scientist track. So I was wondering if someone could talk about how to build those skills to pursue basic science research or translational research.
Does anyone want to tackle that? If not, I can comment. I would say the most important thing is for you to figure out what you're interested in. And then once you have a sense of what you're interested in, start meeting with people who are working in those general areas and see if any of them has an opportunity for you to either join a lab or work on an ongoing project and take it from there. You won't be able to do everything all at once, but if you take it step by step, that's what I would recommend. Other questions?
Just a general question. For people who don't have a PhD or a master's, what would you recommend for kind of some basic statistical education? I know there was a statistics, like a biostats program here at Sinai previously that wasn't like a full master's. So I was told that's not being offered any longer.
take a shot at this. Most of my work is actually, I transitioned to doing more sort of informatics and data science stuff from traditional statistics and frequentist statistics, whatever you want to call it. So I would say it's really hard to sort of teach yourself some of that stuff and sort of do it independently. I don't have any specific suggestions, unfortunately, like courses or things like that, but I do think if you can sort of find a formal program, it benefits you a lot. I think trying to, especially when you take what that knowledge and try to apply it to, some sort of data set, it gets really, really messy. So, trying to set up a self-learning plan through some sort of online course can be challenging. It can be done. I mean, it certainly can be done, but I think if you can find a course, that has formal instruction and maybe even like a mentor, I think that would be my recommendation, unfortunately.
There are also some summer programs that are offered through, I know like University of Washington has one that I think is 4 to 6 weeks. So if you plan enough ahead of time, you could do that as part of your elective or whatever extra time you have. And then if you just need to get started with statistics for a project, there are a lot of walk-in statistic, like StatChat, and I think some departments have their own statisticians that you can work with to at least get started. And depending on what level of statistics you need, they might be able to either help walk you through it so you can learn some of those skills or point you in the right direction of specific trainings.
Trevor, we see your hand up. You can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, it was not so much a question, but just a plug for the previous question that was asked. If you're interested in learning statistics, biostatistics, and R specifically, I did not have any background in that, even really during my PhD, but during my time in residency with Alex, used a website with a professor from the University of Michigan called Riffomonas, RIFFOMANAS. I'll put a link in the chat, but it's a really excellent code club that gets into utilizing R for data science, specifically biological data science, and handling data both from a visualization standpoint as well as just analysis. Alex and I have published and are in the process of publishing some large national inpatient sample databases based off of code that I wrote with this. So really helpful, and would recommend it highly.
Great. Do we have other questions? Are there other questions in the chat? Okay, let's see. Let me ask a different kind of question. Would any of you like to comment on networking, the importance of networking and how you go about doing it, and at what stage of your training do you do it?
Sorry, I'm a broken record. I don't think there's a bad time to network. I feel like most people in this room would agree. I think networking looks differently depending on where you are in your career, whether you're looking for a fellowship spot, you're looking for a job, you're looking to be promoted, etc. But networking is incredibly important. I mean, I can't stress enough how much my career has developed just by attending national conferences, going to meetings, giving plenary talks, etc. Just establishing collaborations with different universities, being part of different multi-institutional registries. I mean, a significant amount of my academic progress has come from this. So I'd say any opportunity, I mentor med students both here and at my alma mater, but I always emphasize like any chance you have to go to any conference, even if it's just like a Mount Sinai conference where, other professors from other institutions in New York City are coming, like take advantage of it. Even just like melting of the minds and hearing different perspectives is so important. I know in our lab, we're meeting with pediatric oncologists at Columbia, MSK, et cetera, and just hearing their perspectives and how different labs do things, you'll learn so much. So there's really no downside.
I definitely second that. Conferences have been like my number one go-to for networking, and it has led actually to a lot of collaborations and projects and publications. Just like I remember one where I just went up to one of the faculty from Cornell. I saw him at ASH, which is one of the conferences we attend for heme disorders, and I just discussed one idea with him, and that led to a discussion and actually eventually a project, a collaboration between two institutions and a publication, and it just started from just like an idea that I just talked about with him. So definitely conferences is number one. Second that I've been resorting to, which is surprising to some people, is Twitter. Twitter right now is a hot thing. I've definitely had a lot of connections made through Twitter. Even have started projects because of that, like people that, I mean, they're known, but I've never talked to before or seen in real life have reached out to me on Twitter, and we've started things just by that. And lastly, I would advise everyone never to be shy to ask your mentors for connections and networking. Like I have multiple mentors, and I've definitely went to each and every one and asked them to introduce me to certain people or to start a collaboration or anything. And that has definitely always led to something. I highly advise people to do that too.
Follow up. In terms of your comment about partnering with someone from an outside institution, do you feel like it's reasonable or harmful or valuable, I guess, to have a mentor from an outside institution when you're just starting out? Or do you think it's important to find someone within Sinai?
It's definitely not a bad idea to have a mentor outside the institution, but I think it's always easier to start within your own institution. It's just easier, smoother, and more efficient. And definitely having someone outside will, I personally don't see a downside to it. It's always going to be beneficial. It's definitely helped me, like when I deal with people outside, but it's definitely easier, and it's going to maybe push you at a faster rate if you have someone inside, for sure.
I'd like to add something. Keep in mind, it may not be obvious, but as your career progresses, the people you meet outside of the place where you train, and when they get to know your work and they get to know you, those are people who are going to be able to write letters for you for all sorts of opportunities, whether it's fellowships or jobs or awards. So the more people you get to know and who get to know your work, the better off you are. Should we wrap up? Okay. Anything else? Maybe briefly, would any of you like to comment on tips for promoting your own work so that people get to know you and what you're doing?
Going off what Tarek said, this is not a joke. Using social media and in a thoughtful way to promote your work, I think, is invaluable. I'd say the last 5 publications that have come out with my name on it, I posted them on Instagram, like on stories. I've had other spine surgeons retweet them. I've had like chairmen at other institutions repost them with their residents, doing journal clubs on them. So I think, obviously you have to do it in a thoughtful way. You have to be appropriate, right? But don't underestimate the value of social media, especially in neurosurgery. There are neurosurgeons with tens of thousands of followers on Instagram that have their own TikToks, etc. And I'm serious. I mean, we're millennials, right? This is how our generation is going to communicate. It's not going to be through paper books anymore. So understanding how to use the medium, I think, is really important. I think doing it in a thoughtful way, people, at least in my field, have been very successful. And I think doctors in other fields as well. One of my college roommates is now an influencer who's EM trained, and he's on a bunch of podcasts, and he publishes a lot on social media about different critical care topics, EM topics, and he's amassed a huge following through it, which has led to him getting multiple fellowships and even job offers halfway through residency. So, you can do it. It's very powerful. It's more powerful than any one publication you can put out. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. I think will be even more prevalent in the next 5 to 10 years.
Any other comments about promoting your own work? I'm sure we'll have more discussions about this in future sessions, but I'd like to thank our panelists for participating and all of you who took time out of your schedule to be here in person or virtually, and we'll look forward to future sessions. So thank you and good night.